And away we go. It is the Nightcap brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken right here on BearcatJournal.com, www.galacticfriedchicken.com for everything Galactic, including delivery right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop. Or you can head down to Dayton, Kentucky, tell them to pump it up, and they will save you 15% off of your order. They are open Wednesday through Sunday, lunch and dinner. So go get yourself the Galactic goodness. It is out of this world. All right, let's get this show on the road. It's been a busy week. Aaron is driving back to Athens, and I also wanted to. I didn't want to be. I didn't want to have Brent be the only person that hasn't shared his thoughts on the spring game. So Aaron will give you his thoughts on Monday, along with Brent, and I'll chime in as necessary. But I figured this would be a good opportunity tonight, while Aaron is making that drive back to Athens, to bring on our guy Keegan Nickoson. Keegan was obviously up in the press box today and taking in all the action, so a little different point of view from myself, and probably a lot less distracted with the number of dignitaries that were on the UC sideline. There was a lot. I don't know if it was, the way that the scheduling worked out with the golf outing and the captain's breakfast. They try to always do those the weekend of the spring game, and then you add the Kelseys into the mix. So a lot of that 2008, 9, 10 crowd was around, but you had Trent Cole and Antoine Peak, who was there for his son. Connor Barwin back in the building, which doesn't happen very often. Connor's a busy dude in the Eagles front office. Jason was there today. The Sauce Man made an appearance. It was a lot. It was really cool to see how many guys were back in town, and it kind of gives the event a different feel when you look around and you see that many guys back in the building.
Yeah, I looked down. I think it was like near in the first 20 minutes, and I looked down and like spotted you, and I just saw some dude in a red shirt standing next to you, and I was like, "Yeah, I know who that is." That doesn't take long to flesh out. I still can't get over people calling him like undersized. He's a freaking huge dude.
Yeah, that's how big NFL offensive linemen are, that he's small.
You could just see he looked like freaking Bigfoot walking around. Talking about Jason Kelce, of course. But yeah, I think Dan tweeted about this, but you don't see that many former like studs and NFL studs coming back for a team spring game just because they have a weekend off. And I think that they definitely try to capitalize in doing so many events on the same weekend. But still, like a lot of people would just say, no, I'm not really interested. I'm going to go to Los Angeles and eat sushi or something like that. So
some still showed up for a part of the weekend and then went to Los Angeles and had sushi. Slept off a hangover on a 4.5, 5 hour flight. Not me. Some, not me. Some. Let's get to it though. I thought a pretty solid showing from both sides. I don't think you walk out of there feeling one side dominated the other, which is funny because the spring kind of happened in two parts where, the first part, the defense was learning and figuring out a new system and figuring out a bunch of new guys. And then, the offense controlled, I thought, the first part of the spring. The second part of the spring, the defense was significantly better. I thought you got to see a pretty good balance of the offense moved the ball some. I thought they stalled out probably too much, in opportunities where they were in scoring range and couldn't, move it all the way to the end zone, settled for some Carter Brown field goals. But overall, I thought it was a pretty balanced game. And by that, I mean, we didn't walk away with one of those like, damn, Sorsby was awesome and also maybe our defensive backfield still stinks.
Yeah.
Right, because that's always in a scrimmage. That's always kind of the give and take.
Yeah, I think the running game was pretty good, all things considered. When they were handing it off, they were gashing for 5-6 yards. And then I think Manny Covey had the best day out of anybody, just getting north and south and being extremely quick.
Yeah, I thought Chance Williams also had a really good day.
Okay. Out of the backfield,
think,
like in the pass game, he was pretty good. Yeah.
That's part of why you bring him in as a weapon, though, is because he can hurt you in a couple different ways. I if we had more questions in the post game, I wanted to ask Satterfield about Manny Covey because I think he helped his stock quite a bit this spring in terms of being a guy that was kind of an unknown coming off of his freshman season, and a guy that you think of as kind of a back of the roster guy. But I mean, he impressed all spring, and he carried that over. That run off the right side for the touchdown, I mean, he was shot like
out of a cannon.
Yeah. At the line of scrimmage. He hit that hole hard. He ran aggressively all the way to the goal line.
Yeah, I think you know, and it was talked about, but they just kind of sat out Corey knowing that he's going to get enough action in the fall. It's kind of the similar thing of Dante Corleone doesn't need to play every snap of the spring game because you kind of know what you're going to get. He's just going to try to deliver as much as he can during the games.
Yeah.
I thought Leslie Ando and Sterling Burkhalter had good days, taking advantage of the opportunities that they were given with Tony Johnson out and Xavier Henderson out. But I think the main thing that stuck out to me was the tight window throws on the run that Brennan Sorsby made, both to Sterling Burkhalter to put Cincinnati kind of in skirt. What was that?
Buckhalter.
Buckhalter?
Isn't it?
It's Burkhalter. Berk.
Yeah, okay. My bad. It's been a long week.
Yeah.
My brain's not firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah. And then he missed a deep ball by 6 inches, maybe, that would have sealed it as this kid's a stud and would have had a lot of people talking. But I think him showing off his legs was also a welcome sight. The play where I think the refs gave him a touchdown, but
they took it away.
a DB and a linebacker were converging on him. And if you saw the Illinois play that he had last season where he like ran over the defenders, he was not shying away from it.
Would have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
It would have been a touchdown. Well, they weren't coming from like an angle where they were going to stop his momentum. They were both closing in from the side of him. I don't know. They wouldn't have stopped him from getting into the end zone in live action. Like it just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And then they called it back and made him run a play from the one.
And they scored. I think Samaj had a pretty interesting day. I think he had a day that a true freshman's gonna have. Yeah. And that he had some throws on the run, kind of trying to make something happen that were pretty good. I think he ran the ball well. I don't think that's a part of his game that needs to be developed at all. I think that's something that he is going to carry with him throughout his entire career. And then he had one of the worst throws I've seen covering college football. And that he was
trying to throw it out of bounds.
No, he wasn't.
I know.
He was throwing it to, I don't know who it was, but they thought he was throwing it out of bounds. So did the corner who intercepted it, and he just went, "Oh, ball, hands," and started running the other direction. But I think that's what you're going to get with the true freshman, and to expect him to have a great day and go into summer camp being your starter, that's not what the thought is right now. So I thought it was a beneficial day for him. And I think Lichtenberg showed off his legs a lot. I think he showed that he can kind of cause some damage on the ground a little bit.
Crazy Legs Lichty?
Crazy Legs Lichty. New nickname.
I mean, wide receiver, important to note. Xavier Henderson out. Tony Johnson out. Evan Prater out. Like,
same as last year, but you have wide receivers alive, basically.
Right. But essentially, like, if you're wondering like why maybe wasn't the passing game as explosive, like I think it looks a lot different if those guys are out there getting reps.
And that's what Satterfield said after the game. He's like, you have a guy, you don't know if he's going to run the route you called. So
Right.
it makes it a little bit difficult. But all like I think they took care of the ball pretty well. I know Lichtenberg had an interception and Logan Wilson in practice, but in terms of just putting balls where only the wide receiver can catch it, I think in large part they did that pretty well today.
Yeah. The Sorsby thing, I think you got to see a good deal of what we were talking about though with him in the intermediate game, in the swing in the screen game. Like he just throws a good ball in those settings.
Drops the
And
arm
that is
angle too.
yeah, he
Noticeably.
does.
Yeah.
He knows how to fit it in, and he's got that little simple flick of the wrist to where it's not,
Baseball.
when
Mhm.
when hands are going up to block it, he's got a way to kind of figure out how to get it around you. And that's just they didn't have that last year, man. They couldn't move the chains. They couldn't consistently produce offense because they weren't able to throw the ball out in the flat for a 7-yard gain when it's there, or hit a tight end coming across the middle for 6 or 7 yards on 2nd and 8, right? And now you're in 3rd and 1. Like they just didn't have that capacity offensively last year, and it looks like that is very much going to be a lot more of their arsenal.
Yeah, I think out of the backfield and the flats to the tight end and the running backs today, it produced more than just 1 to 2 yard bailouts. I think they were getting 6
Right.
to 7 yards. Royer showed it, Chance and Evan showed it. I think that's going to be something. And then you can kind of mix that in with the RPO like they did with Dez. I think I saw that a few times today with Sorsby and Lichtenberg getting out using the legs. So I just think it opens up a lot more. And I like that Sorsby isn't afraid to try to make a play. And I think
Yeah.
when you pair that with his ability as an accurate passer, that opens up a lot for the Cincinnati offense.
Agreed.
So I just think it's a step or 2 steps up. And when a lot of people ask me, you know what, like, are they better than last year? Like, because a lot of people, that's the standard right now. Like after last season, their standards are kind of low. They just want to be better. I always start with, I think you have a better quarterback. Like in my mind, I just think you have a better quarterback. And I think if you had a
I
better
don't think
quarterback
that's even
last
an
year,
opinion. I think that's a fact.
yeah, I know. But if you had a better quarterback last year who hits 6 to 7 more deep balls, what's your record?
Right.
Just in that. So I think just opening it up more is going to benefit them a lot. And I think you walk away today satisfied from that position. And then, and even after the game, what did he say? His confidence in the playbook is a 6.
Right.
And he played like that today without Xavier Johnson. I think without Tony Johnson. I think Terrence Smith had some limited reps. I didn't see him on the field as much.
He wasn't out there a ton, no.
But he even showed like his first step after he catches the ball is quick.
Oh yeah.
Like his yak is going to be pretty high this year, I think.
Yeah. I would agree with that. He just has that short area ability to make you miss. Defensively, Simeon Coleman can hit people. We saw that a couple times again today, where he just fills a gap and just smashes into whoever has the ball. Like I'm trying to think back to the last time there was maybe Jarrell. Like Jarrell had some of
that was
that.
the first name that came.
I think Simeon Coleman might be a little more athletic than Jarrell when Jarrell first came in.
How much taller is he than Jarrell?
Jarrell was probably 5'9". They're similar. They're I think Jarrell was maybe a little thicker, like in the core at a younger age, where Simeon will probably get there like, as a sophomore or year 2 or whatever it ends up being. but he's just it's not even just that he plays downhill. Like, even if he's like waiting in a gap, it seems like he'll jump up and just smack somebody.
Yeah. And I think I saw, not in the same vein as attacking ball carriers, but Jaquan Sanks, as a true freshman, just continues to be in the right place at the right time to try to make plays in terms of racking up PBUs. He almost had an interception on a poorly thrown ball by Samaj early, and it was another one where the defensive back was kind of surprised to have a ball in his hands, and he just dropped it. And then on the other end of the field in the red zone, he had a really good pass breakup that kind of, I think it stalled the drive, and they ended up having to take a field goal after a Brian Sims sack. I think it was a Jaquan PBU and then a Brian Sims sack to force a field goal. So I think in terms of those two true freshmen, I think Simeon and Jaquan might see the field a decent amount this season. And then Zaravion is a guy who's just going to continue to develop into hopefully a corner that you can call a CB1 either next year or 2 years down the road.
Like Jordan Young didn't play today. Like, there's like,
yeah, he didn't. Right.
If they, I mean, if they don't add a corner in the portal, which I think they will, I think that's something they know they need.
Last
more
year, you need all the freaking depth you can possibly have corner.
Grady, I think, can play his way onto the field. Like, I don't. He doesn't have the clear, just ridiculous physical attributes that Sauce had, but he's long, he's tall, he's got good size, he's long. I think he's a guy that, especially if nothing else, you could see be a factor on special teams.
Yeah.
And that's usually like the first step in that progression of getting on the field. I think Simeon too. I mean, you imagine him running down a lane. Like, he's probably not going to be your gunners, but being that second wave of guy. If a guy gets past the initial line of defense on a return, and him just smoking somebody, that's what I was kind of getting at earlier. Like, he doesn't need a whole lot of build up to hit you hard. He doesn't have to be. When you talk about playing downhill, you're thinking about a guy getting like a 3-4 yard head start and like really hitting somebody. No, he can be pretty flat footed and put somebody on their back. Like, he's not leverage deficient.
Yeah. I think, and we're talking about Simeon a lot, and then you have Jack Dingle, and then you also have Jonathan Thompson. So I think where they're at right now at linebacker,
you have Jared Bartlett.
Yeah, and of course, I'm still registering him as an edge. Like, when I think of Bartlett, I think of edge, but now he's going to be coming out of the middle.
Yeah, Brian Sims, that I think has looked good at linebacker. So that's a position I'm still interested to see under Coach Veit how it continues to develop. But I mean, if you've got 4 or 5 guys you're pretty confident in, you hope you're in a pretty good spot at linebacker. I know it's unfortunate because I think this is a guy that both staffs have had a really high hope for. It sounds like Sincere Lewis messed up his knee again, and it's going to be a while, which that's frustrating because that was the guy as a true freshman that flashed, like we're talking about. Like, man, this kid kind of came out of nowhere. He wasn't one of the splashy higher rated guys, but now he has got 2 considerable knee injuries. So it might be a case of what never was. Hopefully he can battle back and get back on track. But that makes Simeon Coleman even that more important, because I know there was a world where they thought Sincere Lewis was really going to be able to step into a spot this spring and get moving, and just isn't. It's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, the early returns that I was hearing early spring, late winter was he was moving extremely well.
Sincere Lewis.
Yeah, and popping off more than people thought that he would. So I mean, that's unfortunate to hear, especially I know he was a linebacker. I think he kind of slotted in at the star. You could correct me if I'm wrong, or at
He was
least
supposed to be like that. Well, in Luke's defense, he was supposed to be like that strong side coverage
okay,
linebacker.
okay. Makes sense.
So he probably would have been a star in last year's defense, that nickel safety hybrid spot.
Mhm.
But I mean, who knows now?
Yeah.
It sucks. It's unfortunate for him. I hate it because he's a really good kid, and it seemed like he had a chance to get on the field early. And now we're talking year 3, and he's going to miss his second year with a significant injury.
That stinks.
It does.
This question popped in my head for you as we were talking about corners and comparing
Okay.
last year to this year, and if they're going to pick one up on the portal. Do you think after quarterback in the Big 12, there is a more important position to be solid at than corner?
The only one that's close is edge rusher,
Okay.
just because if you have an elite edge rusher, let's face it, like college tackles are questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there are some teams that have the luxury of having 2 good ones. Most teams, if they have one good one, like one of the 2 sides is not great.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that dominant edge rusher, you really can make offenses uncomfortable. So corner and edge would be even. I might give corner a little bit of a leg up just because of how much teams throw and spread you out. And if you have, I mean, there's no, you will never see anything like Sauce again,
Mm-hmm.
where teams just said that side's out. We're not. We're spending an entire week working from hash to sideline.
Yeah.
And this hash to that sideline is not in our playbook. And
Mm-hmm.
that is, that's hard to even discuss how incredible that is that one person can have that impact.
It's rare that it happens in football, period.
Yeah.
Darrelle Revis, Patrick Peterson, Jalen Ramsey, Sauce.
Right. Yeah, there's not many that can just, they call it an island for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I'd give corner a little bit of an edge because I think a dominant corner, like I guess like an edge rusher, you can chip with the line or with the tight end. You can bring a running back. You can do a couple different things. If you have an elite corner, what are they going to run 2 wide receivers at him? Like there's no answer for that other than we're not going to be able to throw the ball to the number 1 wide receiver in college football and Jamison Williams because Sauce is over there.
Mm-hmm.
That would give it the just a slight edge for me.
Gotcha.
But edge and corner are neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else?
I do. So
Okay.
as I was on the field walking around, just kind of like getting my bearings before the game, I was walking across the north end zone. North is opposite student section, right? Is that north?
That
Maybe?
the student section is the south end zone. The Bearcat layer where we were standing is the north end zone.
Okay. So as I'm walking across the north end zone or behind it, I see a recruit walking the other way. I'm like, he looks familiar. And it snaps. I'm like, oh, that's Lendrick Barber. I don't know if you saw him today.
I did not.
He has slimmed down considerably. And when I talked to some people about it, they're like, yeah, he only lost 5 pounds, but he just had a complete body recomposition that made him look like a different cat. I think it's kind of comparable to Dante and where he was coming out of Coleraine as just a guy who used his weight to move people around and then adds muscle, slims down a little bit. I was told Aiden Pastoriza and Zach Clark have also put on considerable weight at the tackle position. And I think that's kind of a underrated pickup that they got late.
I saw Clark a couple weeks ago at spring practice, and he looks great.
Yeah,
he looks really good. Like
yeah.
he looked like he had a tight end body when they started recruiting him.
Yeah.
And he looks more like an offensive lineman now. Not all the way
Yeah.
there yet, but he's trending in the right direction.
And they've done that not being on campus. Like they're not early
Right.
enrollees. There's still guys who aren't on campus.
Yeah.
The consensus is that getting those guys out of the portal is basically impossible unless you're Alabama, Georgia, LSU, because they're very expensive.
Yeah.
So
And there's very few of them.
If they can hit on those two guys and develop them into anchors on their offensive line, that is going to be huge for the University of Cincinnati's football team. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them get on campus over the summer and see what they can be able to do.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. It's going to be another big week. It's going to be another big week. Spring football, yes. Spring football is done. But stick with me. There's going to be a lot this week.
Make sure you're subscribed.
Like and subscribe to this podcast, and then go join Bearcat Journal.
Yep.
All right. We will see you tomorrow night. That is the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com.